Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending upon where you are watching us. Welcome to the Post-Crisis Hospitality Management Certificate Program as put together by the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, Muma College of Business at the University of South Florida. My name is Professor Cihan Çobanoğlu. I'm the director of M3 Center, also a McKibben Endowed Chair Professor. Today, we are going to have our seventh week lecture. It's full of great content. We will first start with Dr. Pat Moreo, the Dean of School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, having a great interview with Mr. Dave Deno, the CEO of Bloomin Brands. And then our 7th week lecture will be conducted by Dean Pat Moreo. And then after that, Dean Moyes de Maya will join us for the graduation ceremony, as this is the last of our certificate program, last lecture of our certificate program. Then we have a surprise for you. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Pat Moreo.
Thank you, Dr. Cihan. Wonderful. And I would like to welcome David Deno to our presentation. This is really quite a feat to be able to get the head of Bloomin Brands to be on here tonight. And even though he's only right next door up the road in Tampa, nevertheless, with COVID, it's not that easy. He's got a lot going on, and David, we appreciate it. I just want to say a few words about you, David, before we start. He's the CEO since April 2019 to the president of Bloomin Brands. But before that, he was with Bloomin Brands as Chief Financial and Administrative Officer from 2012 to 2019. He was with Best Buy for several years, and he was president of Asia and the CFO for the international division. He was with Yum Brands as CFO, and he was with PepsiCo, particularly the Pizza Hut division, as CFO and division vice president. And he was with Burger King as well. So what and with other companies too, but what a great stellar background. Bloomin Brands is a huge company, although I think David runs it in a way that you would never know that in terms of how tight it is. It includes the brands of Outbacks, Carabbas, Bonefish Grill, Fleming's, 1,450 restaurants, 93,000 team members, 48 states, 21 countries. David was honored by the Global Finance for his 2020 crisis management. So David, welcome. And so you know what the first question is going to be, David. Crisis management. This thing happened in March. We've been in it 9 months now. What did you first do? And then how have you made it through the last 9 months?
Well, March 10th will always be ingrained in my personal memory and the memory of our executive leadership team. That's the night you may remember that Tom Hanks and his wife announced they were sick with the virus and the NBA shut down. And we get our sales every day at about 9 o'clock in the morning. So Thursday, our sales for Wednesday night were still okay because the world hadn't really known about it yet. Thursday night sales, which we got Friday, were weak. And then Saturday, when I woke up and saw sales for Friday night, they were abysmal. And so we pulled together the team starting at noon on that Saturday. And we met every day at noon, weekends, weekdays, until we sorted it all out. And you may remember those chaotic days. We didn't know what the virus looked like. We didn't know about food supply. Restaurants were getting shut down quickly. We had to convert to a delivery carry-out only model. All those things came together. So managing in a crisis, you have to determine what is vitally important, and everything else goes away. Number one, we were going to take care of our customers and serve the food to them in a format that was safe. And two, we were going to take care of our people. And we did both of those things very well, starting in March and coming through to today.
Okay. In preparing for this interview with you, I saw that there were some specific things you did over those first days and weeks in terms of communication with the brands and in terms of steps you took. What were some of those things?
Well, I think the most important thing was what I just talked about, which is one, we're going to take care of our customers and take care of our people, and everything else was cast aside. Then I had to, along with our leadership team, it's not just about me, believe me. Our leadership team, we had to give a sense of hope in a very, very, very difficult time. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about how we were going to do that. And then we started forming communication networks with our government and other people in the restaurant industry to understand what was going on and what they were going to do about it. So that was important. Then we had to reach out to our partners, our suppliers, everything. Were they going to be okay? Were their food distribution outlets going to be fine? How are we prepared for in case there's an emergency? A lot of contingency planning. But I would say the main communication to a group of 92,000 people is the top two things we worked on and giving people a sense of hope. And that's what we tried to do.
Was there any difference in the way that you had to deal with company-operated and owned restaurants versus those that were franchised?
No, we're about 80% company-owned, so we don't have that many franchise restaurants, and we have some really great partners. And we were really, lockstep with them on what we were both doing. Okay.
By the way, I noticed that you had Tender Shack here opening, and I wondered, were you planning on that before the pandemic hit, or was that an outgrowth of the pandemic?
Well, I think let me tie it into a broader point, if you don't mind, and then we'll
please
talk about Tender Shack. I think one of the things that I've learned from this crisis is trends that were happening, right? Digital, off-premise, convenience, they were happening. It's just when you have a crisis like this, the time gets condensed from here to here, right?
Right.
Even here. And so we had considered doing what we call a virtual brand. Now, Tender Shack is a virtual brand that is advertised and accessed by the customer on DoorDash, which is our partner. And our existing restaurants fulfill the product to the customers. So we were considering it, but when this came up, we just accelerated it.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about Tender Shack. I mean, how does it work?
It's pretty straightforward. It is 4 or 5 products. The best chickens, tenders you'll ever have, number 1, it's quality. 2, great fries. 3, drink. 4, a cookie. That's it. And it's done with existing products we already serve in our restaurants. It's done with the existing equipment that already exists in our restaurants. So we have very little incremental labor, no additional food cost, no capital investment. And so we can take it and go national with it whenever we're ready.
But have you yet?
Mm-mm.
Haven't started.
Not yet. We're testing in certain states right now. I think the main thing, whenever you do a brand rollout, whether it's in consumer products or retail at restaurants, is have your customer measures, have your operating measures, and have your financial measures. And each one has got to carry its weight before you roll it out. So we're looking at those 3 things right now, but we're very pleased with what we see so far. Stay tuned to our February earnings release for an update.
All right. Wonderful.
Yeah.
In fact, I was reading an article today in one of the trade publications about ghost kitchens, and they were talking about ghost kitchens and said that there be a strong relationship with some of the delivery services. And you mentioned that I think DoorDash, you just said you
correct. Yes.
How did that work out for you? And was there curbside pickup at some of your restaurants too? Both?
Well, we have before all this started, we had a very strong delivery business. So we have our own network that we have the drivers and do everything. We have third-party providers like DoorDash and Uber Eats. And then we have carryout, which we've had for 15, 20 years.
Okay.
And all those we're in place and performing very well. Naturally, in an environment like this, they explode. I mean, it just boom. Everybody's getting carried out food, they're getting delivered, etc. So it was a very, very big part of our business that got even bigger. Tender Shack is delivered only. You can't pick it up, but it's delivered only to your home.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yes.
And are they in special containers to stay hot?
Yeah. It's a long time ago. You got to keep that food hot, and the beautiful thing is, it travels very well, and people really enjoy it. And we have a lot of great sauces to go with it, so it's really kind of fun. And great price point too. So I think the product is really terrific. Fresh cut, fresh chicken, lightly breaded. It's wonderful.
So I would assume from the way you're speaking, and obviously with the research you're doing and have done, that this product will continue on beyond the end of the pandemic.
Some would say. Some would say. We don't know. I haven't gone public with it yet, so I can't unfortunately tell this group of people. But It's in test, and we like what we see.
Okay. All right. Good. Just a comment.
No problem.
Well, when this unfolded, and you've talked to us about communications and things you had to do immediately to keep people motivated and to sort of allay some of their fears. But I guess the other question that comes up with such a variety of brands, so not just ownership structure, franchise, non-franchise, company, store, and you said 80% were company restaurant,
right?
But brands, did that present the possibility of a chaotic situation in terms of trying to manage each of those brands within the context of the pandemic?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned working in a multi-divisional environment is the stuff that the customer doesn't see is managed centrally. So even though you have these 4 brands, the stuff that the customer doesn't see, supply chain, real estate development, information technology, those kind of things are done centrally in one spot. So that's consistent. So how we procure our supplies, how we did our information, et cetera, was all consistent. Each brand has its own marketing group and operations group. But having said that, we have one person in charge of operations to make sure our operations procedures are consistent across our brands. So you may be going to a Bonefish for seafood or Carabba's for Italian or Outback for steak, but what you're seeing underneath it is a set of operating principles that are the core of our company and our culture. That was crucial. I can't begin to tell you how crucial that was. So we could talk in the same language about what we're doing as a company, even though we had different brands.
And who executes those operating principles? Is there a person that's across the company that works with all the brands, or is there one for each brand trying to put forward the common operating principles?
So Greg Scarlett is our Chief Operating Officer, and he handles all the operating elements of our company. And then brand presidents and their operating. So each brand will have a president. They'll work about marketing and operations and the things that are unique to that brand. And then that person will have a head of operations underneath them that has all of our field leadership. And so you've got the strength of Greg and what he's been with our company 25 years, the strength of Greg and his operating procedures. And then in each brand, we have some of the unique attributes that make those brands unique. So we have, I think, really the best of both worlds. Now, the other thing we have is we have staff leaders, leaders that know their stuff in a very deep way. In fact, our controller, by the way, is a good University of South Florida graduate, Phil Pace. So he will take care of all of our financial matters. We'll have an IT person taking care of that, a person in Michael Healy taking care of supply chain. Those things are done by one person, one time.
And they coordinate with each other, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're a big company, but we're really not that big. I mean, there's just a few of us that run the company. We meet every Monday now, and also Thursday if need be, and just talk about matters that we're staying on top of. So we can move quickly, but it's a group of 10 or 15 people that we can just get together and talk.
Yeah, well, Mr. Deno, as I listen to you, and as I look at your background, I guess I have to ask myself the question: did your experience as a CFO, and then I think you had the title of Chief Administrative Officer before, did that play a special role in your now being the CEO of this company? In other words, do you think you have a greater appreciation, and if so, how, of processes?
Yeah, well, I certainly helped, but a secret that is in my background that really isn't well known is I have been a longtime restaurant operator as well. So I've run restaurants, And I've also been a general manager around the world. So I've done business in Asia. I've done business in Europe. So the operating processes, I deeply know. Obviously, the financial things and all the things that go with it, I understand. And I also ran real estate for a long time. So I pretty much run every single function in a restaurant company would have, except for marketing. But I rely on those folks to help me out. But I think when you understand for anybody to be a great executive, if you're going to be a great CFO, you've got to understand how the business works. And actually operating restaurants and leading operations of thousands of restaurants helped me out a lot and helped me cut through a lot of things.
What were some of the restaurants that you operated, Mr. Deno?
Oh, I'm an old Pizza Hut operator, so I can sling dough with the best of them. I can also fry chicken at KFC and make a taco at Taco Bell. And I also tried to get to know our brands pretty well too. And way back in the day, in the big 80s, I was in operations with Burger King.
Yeah. Well, that's and of course with PepsiCo, I'm very familiar with them. My family used to be in the soda business. I slung many cases of soda on pallets.
There you go.
Before they had those palletizing machines. So
yeah, I mean, how else are you going to know what's going on in your business unless you're making dough, slinging cases of soda? I encourage everybody that's on this call to really get to know their business and the guts of it. That'll help you out so much.
Yeah, and I have to commend Bloomin Brands, and at least from the parts of it that I've seen a little bit under the hood. I had a consulting assignment one time with the Carabbas in Las Vegas. There were about 3 there, I think, and I had one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a long story, but it was there was some need for outside consultation there. And part of what I had to do was document how some dishes were being prepared. I got to tell you, what really impressed me was that at Carabba's, which, it's not super high end, it's very good, but it's not real expensive. It's a moderately priced product, I think, well positioned in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But one of the dishes I had to become involved with was the mussels and pasta, and it was Prince Edward Island mussels coming in on vines. And I thought to myself, what? And the cooks knew exactly when they were cleaned and where they were in the walk-in. Is it like that across all the brands?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We are, I mean, the lobsters we get, they're swimming up Nova Scotia and Boston as we speak. The beef we get is the stuff you see as you drive across this country. The fish you get is fresh. A lot of our specials at Bonefish are caught right off in the Gulf. I mean, the quality of the produce we get. I mean, it's amazing, and that's what I think sets us apart versus some of the competition or others in the industry.
And boy, does it show, because people come in, they go back and they go back and they go back.
Mm-hmm.
And as another example, again, when I was at UNLV for many years in Las Vegas, Bonefish was one of our hangouts to go have a little glass of wine to have business meetings. But again, the product was great wines there. Also, you did something special with the service there, because the staff in there knew who we were. Mm-hmm. I mean, not because we were in every day. We'd like to have been, but we weren't. But they knew who we were. You could tell that the training was amazing. So there's 2 brands that I'm quite familiar with. So how do you get the staff? What are your training focuses on the staff?
Well, I think one of the things that our company offers, and why people ask me all the time, what's attracted you to the restaurant business? And one of the things that has really attracted me is it's a chance for social mobility in our country. I mean, number one, it's a place you can go work while you might be doing something at school or a second income or whatever. But it's also a place, it's one of the few places where you can take an entry-level job and move into a very high level of income and status. If you're a managing partner in one of our restaurants, you're very well paid. If you're a first level supervisor, which you're running like 10 restaurants, I mean, you're earning a very, very good living. And it's a chance for people to come into a business, learn skills, learn leadership, and grow with the company. And that's what people see. They see that. And that's why we're able to attract people. Our turnover is very, very, very low, and because they see the growth. So I just think that we we get to enjoy that kind of leadership by people who really care.
Mr. Deno, we just had a question come in, but before we go to that question, I just want to pick up on something you said a moment ago. Two things. One, you talked about opportunities, and obviously that's why we're here with the School of Hospitality in terms
Absolutely.
And we're going to be hopefully calling on you after the pandemic is over to be sure that we can be as connected to you as we can be in having our students find opportunity with Bloomin Brands. And you've been close to us now for several years, so that's all good, and we hope that continues and even gets hotter. The question that came in, and we're gonna morph to this in a second, but since she asked it now, the vaccines started coming in today.
Yes.
Or getting administered today. They were delivered yesterday, and they're starting to administer them today. The question is, what is your prediction about the comeback after the vaccine? Is the vaccine going to affect the comeback? Jihan, flash that question one more time on the screen. I just want to be sure about the industry's comeback after the first vaccine is given, which already happened.
We just had, one of the things about communications is you've got to keep in touch with your people. And we just had an all-employee virtual meeting, much like this one, with our people that work at our headquarters. And, first of all, let me say to Pfizer and other companies that made the vaccine happen, what a remarkable achievement. I mean, it's just amazing to see what they've done. And so my hat's off to them. Look, this is one man's opinion. I am extremely bullish about the spring and summer. I'm old enough to see America come back from some very difficult things. I am very, very, very optimistic about what's going to happen. We are in, though, for a tough 2 or 3 months. So what I'm trying to communicate to our organization is we will get through this together. We will support you. We'll show empathy. At the same time, know that we have a vaccine and a light at the end of the tunnel, and we can go forward. So I am extremely optimistic to see what's going to happen here.
And Mr. Deno, we have a follow-up question on the vaccines, though. One of the listeners is asking if you're going to require staff to take it.
Yeah, that was discussed in our executive team meeting today, and more to follow. We'll be working with industry experts on that and working with the government to decide what the best profile is. But it's too early to say from our standpoint exactly how we're going to handle it, because it's a pretty complicated matter. I know I'll be getting one, and I know I have great belief in what's going to happen to it in our country, but we have to decide the profile we're going to take as a company. That's a little too early to announce anything yet.
And just so you and our listeners know, you have a hard stop at 5 o'clock, and we know that 5 local time. And but I do have 2 more quick questions for you.
Yes.
So you mentioned international, and I think I said earlier you're in 21 countries.
Correct.
Around the world. Did you see much of a difference in the way, either the reaction that you got in the restaurants in those other companies, or how you had to handle those other countries' operations?
Well, we have company operations in Brazil, so we know that we know the most about that, and franchise partners around the world. So let me briefly talk about that. Brazil was almost exactly like the U.S., about a month late. So when it happened here, it happened a month later in Brazil, and the same kind of caseload and things that they were dealing with, and they're about the same spot that we are as far as restrictions and things. So it's very similar. And Pierre, our leader down there, is doing a fabulous job with our restaurants. We have franchise operations in the Middle East and Asia. Let me talk mainly about Asia. Asia, as you all know, happened sooner, but it ended faster, and we're now seeing the economies in Asia pick up greatly, and we're very happy with what we see over there. They've done a nice job.
And the last question that I have for you, and probably the hardest one to answer,
sure,
is what if you had to put a 20,000-foot view, and it's hard to do because we're still in this.
Yeah.
What have you learned? What have you as a CEO, and you as a manager, and you as a leader, learned about how we need, what changes, or what do we need to do post-crisis? What can we do? What have we learned from this? What should we do differently from what we were doing before, if anything?
Are you talking about we as a country and society?
No, as an industry, the restaurant industry.
Oh, restaurant industry. Two things. One, I think we need to demand our leadership be better prepared for the next time, right?
Right.
And who knows? I'm not throwing stones at this because it was unbelievably difficult. And I saw SARS in Asia 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Lived through that. But let's learn from this and let's be ready, and be all over this the next time it comes, whenever that is. Hopefully it's not for decades, but whenever that is. Number one. Number two, I think the hospitality industry needs a more concerted and stronger voice with its government leaders. And I would strongly encourage, and we try and punch above our weight in that, and we want to do the right thing. I'm not suggesting, but our voice needs to be heard. We employ 92,000 people. Okay, that's big. And we just got to have our voice, our thoughts, organized in a proper way and working with our governments and our various leaders. That needs to be improved.
And is, for example, the National Restaurant Association one vehicle that we should be
absolutely
pouring more resources in to do that?
Absolutely.
Because that's a major role for the NRA, I guess, isn't it?
Yes, and we have people on the board, and our people work very closely with them, and no, absolutely is.
Yeah. In fact, one of our guests tonight, coming up shortly here, is going to be Dick Rivera, who used to be president of the NRA.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, David Deno, I want to thank you for doing this. I know how busy you are, and I just want to end this by not giving you a chance to say no to another invitation later in the spring, just to speak to one of our classes. We have a special speaker series where we'd have a little more time for them to ask you questions.
No, I have a history of going on college campuses, and I'm happy to do it to share some of my learnings. And I look forward to doing that in person here this spring.
Me too. Thank you, David Deno. Thanks for being here. Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Gian, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. What a great interview. And we are really fortunate to have Mr. David Deno to be with us. And also knowing that they are just in our backyard in Tampa, their headquarters, also makes it great as we now offer our hospitality degree in our University of South Florida Tampa campus. Now, I would like to reintroduce you Dean Pat Moreo. He is the Dean of School of Hospitality and Tourism Management in the Muma College of Business at the University of South Florida. We are delighted to have him as our instructor for the Week 7 lecture. Dean Moreo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just want to be sure that the audience can see the slide here, the first slide. And I would just like everybody to know that we're going to use our whole 70 minutes that we have tonight. We're going to try to stay tight. We have several guests tonight, which I thought would be a nice way to end this and sum it up. And I know that it's hard for those guests they have 10 minutes. It's hard to stay in the 10 minutes because there's so much, and I have so much to ask them. But I think we can do it. And I want you all to know that even if a guest, when they're on, runs out of time, which I want them to do, then at the end, we're going to spend the last 10 minutes at least. And if we get done earlier, it'll be more than 10 minutes together with our guests together on one panel. So I think this would be pretty nice. So I want to let you know that we appreciated everything you've done. I just want to summarize where we've been in the last few weeks on this journey of know-how and an application. And I hope that's what's happened, that we've somehow been able to bring theory and practice together on all this. So the first week, we certainly talked about leadership and planning. The second week, law and hospitality. And HR was part of that as well, if you recall. Well, the first week was Adam Karmer, and it was just a terrific job. Second week, law and hospitality, Trishna Mistry, Dr. Trishna Mistry, and Keith Barron, our resident attorney, professor attorney, did a great job. The next one was consumer behavior and marketing, particularly use of analytics, which is a stronghold of the Muma College of Business. It's one of the strengths that we hope to even learn more about as we continue to integrate into the Muma College of Business. And that was Dr. Faizan Ali who did that. It was just terrific. And then our own Dr. Jihan Chobanoglu, technology. And wow, what an eye opener on how we can use technology and the role that technology needs to work for us. Food and beverage operations and management, we had Dr. Joe Askren and Mr. Gary Colpitz. They interviewed two restaurateurs that we had on who are actually local, but two very different restaurants, and they're leaders in the Sarasota and Manatee communities. And then last week we had finance, accounting, and entrepreneurship, and again we had a terrific presentation on finance and accounting, managerial accounting in particular, which is critical to knowing how to get money and capitalize. And entrepreneurship, Adam again used a case study to talk about that. And then tonight we're summing it up, and it's hospitality operations and management. Hopefully we see this in some kind of a context. I mean, that's the whole idea. And even though we don't have a lot of time, we're hoping that that's what we can do. So I would like to go next then to our Dean, Moaz Limayam. And just so you know, we're a School of Hospitality and Tourism Management in the Muma College of Business. We joined the Muma College of Business, and thank God because the university consolidated from 3 campuses into 1 on July 1st. I call it a merger. They don't like that term. It's a consolidation. It's okay. And Dean Moaz Limayam invited us, when this was first announced almost 2 years ago, to join the Muma College of Business. And are we glad we did? We have learned so much, and we felt so welcome in the Muma College of Business. We think that we have a lot we're going to learn, and we hope we have a lot to share as well with the Muma College. So Dean Limayam is the dean of the whole shooting match. He's got 5 schools under him. We're one of them. And he has a saying, and we've heard it a lot in the last 9 months. The saying is, don't let a crisis go to waste. Moaz, talk to us about not letting a crisis go to waste.
First of all, thank you so much, Dean Moreo, for inviting me. It's what a pleasure and what an honor to be talking with you this evening, this morning, this afternoon, depending on where our listeners are. But this is the end of a really wonderful journey that lasted 7 weeks, and I personally enjoyed every session, and I really hope that our participants from 102 countries also enjoyed as much as I have. And thank you so much, Pat, for you and the team for putting together a truly world-class certificate, so much needed, given the challenges that the industry of hospitality and tourism is experiences. So to answer your question, you probably heard it many times, Pat. Yes, we really should not, and what a shame if we let, especially a crisis like this COVID-19 pandemic, go to waste. And what I really mean by that is we have learned so much during this crisis. We have learned about how to be agile and resilient. We learn what does it mean to really move on a very short notice to remote work, and in our case, even remote instructions and also remote or e-learning. So a lot of learning that should not go to waste. And you probably also heard me say many times, Pat, is that after this pandemic is over, and hopefully it is, and everybody agrees now that we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an incoming train. I strongly believe that they will be winners and losers. Unfortunately, my predictions is that there will be more losers than winners, and then the question becomes, what will separate the winners from the losers? I think the number one thing that will separate them is exactly what you asked me about, is the winners would have learned the lesson. As Mr. Deno was explaining, I hope when this next time a crisis like this happen, we will be ready and we will be agile and resilient. So that's the number one. I also really believe if any company, university, organizations, government agency, if after this pandemic is over, they're still offering the same product and services to the same customer base, using the same delivery format, using the same processes, those will be, unfortunately, the losers, because they have not learned their lessons, because they have not leveraged on the learning that we gained during this crisis. So my advice to all our wonderful participants from more than 100 countries is, this is the time. This is really the time to innovate. This is the time to ask the questions. Let's rethink the way we do business. If I am a restaurant or a hospitality organizations, I need to ask, should we keep on doing the same product or the same services the same way, the same processes with the same customers? Because, the impact will be long and lasting, as I'm sure we know. And if you want to be among the winners, please rethink the way you do business, leverage on the learning that you acquired during this horrible pandemic. I hope I'm answering your questions, Pat.
No, that's you have, Moaz. And I guess I would ask you this too. As you see the evolution of the pandemic and how it's worked, what do you think about our students in all of this? How are they going to move forward?
Yeah. I mean, this is really good. Always the one thing that keeps me up at night are our people. When I say our people, our faculty and staff and our students. And let me start with our raison d'être. The students really is. Unfortunately, if we think this pandemic has been really rough on us, think about the students. I mean, many of them lost their part-time jobs. Their parents lost their jobs, so many of them are left without any source of income. All of a sudden, they have to be isolated in a room, sometimes not with the right infrastructure to take all their courses online. We have done everything we can, and I think to a large extent we were able to succeed and serve them well. But let's face it, it's not like the face-to-face. That experience, even though we're trying to also organize some of the extracurricular and co-curricular activities virtually, let's put it this way, Pat, I cannot wait to see our campus back to its normalcy, even if we have to struggle finding a parking. I will take that any day, just to see people, to see that the vibrant campus that USF is on 3 campuses, to see the joy on the face of our students, having the experience of their lifetime and enjoying the college experience like never before.
Boaz, we have a question here from a listener. This pandemic has certainly taught us to adjust and remain flexible. How important is it to be a change agent? She asks.
Oh, it is crucial, Margot. That's a great question. It is so important. If there is one thing that is certain in our era, especially with the pandemic, is change. That's the only thing that is certain. The constant change is something that we have to live for. I think, unfortunately, I agree with Mr. Dave Deno that this is probably will not be the last crisis we're going to see. We're going to have more crises. So it is so important. And again, going back to my view, is that they will be winners and losers. And one of the things that differentiate the winners from the losers actually is the extent to which they are willing to change. And we don't change for the sake of changing, right, Pat? We change because we want to improve. So the extent to which we're always listening to our customers, the extent to which we're always finding ways we streamline and improve our business processes, change in a way we train our people so they serve our customer better. So absolutely, this is the time for change, and it is here to stay. And I think we just saw another question just fly by.
It was a comment saying they
Oh,
like focused optimism, Moaz, and it's great.
Good, thank you, That's who I am. Yes.
And I can tell you all, I mean, we meet together at least a few times a week, and this is the way he is most of the time. He's really great, unless he's worried about the budget.
No caffeine. Did not drink caffeine today.
Yeah, the budget's the only thing that makes him crazy sometimes.
That is true. He's making us, but it's making everybody. These are tough with all budget constraints and everywhere. But you know what? I really believe it's the beginning of the end of the tough times.
I agree. Moaz, you have time. We have time for one last question.
Sure.
And if anybody from the audience has one, that's great. But my last question to you is: you have an international perspective on things. I mean, you're trilingual. You've worked in many different places, even in the middle of the U.S. And what have you learned for yourself or observed on the international evolution of this pandemic as compared to us in the U.S., or are there no differences?
It's really amazing. What this pandemic has proven to all of us, Pat, is this phrase that a lot of people kept saying, but many don't even understand what it is. The world is becoming very small and extremely interconnected. You've heard our guests saying, what happened in Asia a few weeks later happened in the US. What happens in the US a few weeks later happened in Brazil. What happened in South America a few weeks later happened in Europe. It's just incredible. I think it's really interesting how this thing spread like wildfire, but also it's very refreshing to see how different forces and different scientists from all over the world, put hands together to find a vaccine in truly a record time. What usually takes years and years and years, now in less than a year, even though the work has started earlier on, I'm sure, but at least in less than a year, as we speak today, people are getting their arms ready for the vaccine. So I think it's good.
And that's going to make a difference in hospitality and tourism, particularly the restaurant sector, which has been so hard hit. One estimate: 33% of restaurants have really had to close, and not just in this country. That's throughout the world.
Sad.
So it's sad. Dean Mosley-Mayim, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for welcoming us with open arms into the Muma College of Business, and thank you for your wisdom.
My pleasure, Pat. We could not have asked for better partners and better new family members for the Muma College of Business than our colleagues from the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. We're thrilled to have you. And again, I really want to take this opportunity on behalf of everyone at the University of South Florida, at the Muma College of Business, at the School of Hospitality and Tourism, to say thank you for being with us for 7 weeks. And I really hope you enjoyed this as much as we have. Thank you for having me, Pat.
Thanks, Moaz.
Thank you.
All right. Well, dear audience, now comes the part of the program that could be scary to you, because I am a professor, and we get into a classroom, and normally we're talking about anything from 45 to 75 minutes. Not going to do that today. My only little lecture part of this is very fast, and the point of it is to just sort of pull things together for us. I'll let you all know before we look at these next few slides that I am trying to encompass everybody. So for my hotel friends, I have my certified hotel administrator pin on. So I've run hotels and done all that. And for my restaurant and food service friends, I have my knife and fork on and run food services as well. So I try to understand all of it as we go through this. And I think what you'll see in the next few slides is really applicable to all of us. So I'm going to just give me one moment while I share all this, and so this is what we saw a second ago. It's supposed to come from the last slide. Okay, restaurants and hotels. So that's part of what we've looked at in this, I don't know, in the last 7 weeks, I guess. What about it? What have we learned from this? What is the big takeaway? I can tell you that Dick Rivera is going to speak to you in a few minutes, and he spoke to my class 2 weeks ago. And one of my takeaways from what Dick said, and he'll probably repeat it tonight, but it reminded me of my days when I was a hotel manager and food service manager. I didn't have my own restaurant. I was on a ship, but we served 12,000 meals a day on the ship. And you walk in the morning, and the tendency, when we're in operations, is to say, geez, I got to put out the fires. I have to make sure that today's schedule is right. It's very tactical. But we also need to be able to step back, and Dick's probably going to talk more about this tonight, but I'm going to give you a little tool to be able to do it, to be able to step back and say, how can I see the whole picture of what's going on? And you've all heard of Henri Fayot. Some of you have, some of you haven't, doesn't matter. He's 100-year-old, well, he's dead, but he fashioned this 14 principles of management and 5 functions of management. I call them principles here because I think it sounds better. But so he's got these principles of management: planning, organizing, directing, motivating, leading. They're kind of all one category. Controlling and evaluating. Now, my suggestion to you is the way to think of this is you say, well, Pat, come on, I'm in here. I have to got food that's got to get out. Our rooms have to get cleaned. Reservations coming in. People I have to hire. People quit. All those things. Marketing campaigns. Got it. But once in a while, you have to step back and say, where are we in the big picture? And you need to take that time, whether it's you take 10, 15 minutes a day, whether you take an hour a week, whatever it is. I still do this in running the hospitality school here. And our functional areas are different, but it's the same idea. So what we need to do is say, okay, this is for a restaurant. So we have to order food. We have to cook it and produce it. We have to serve it. We have to make sure that people are coming in. We have to do marketing. You can do the same thing in a hotel, front office, housekeeping, accounting and finance, reservations, you name it. There's several, depends on the size of the hotel. There's a lot of functions, or sometimes they are actually separate departments. What's really important is to ask in each of these areas. So let's take the restaurant. Let's take production. Let's take cooking, okay, and kitchen operations, culinary. How do we plan for that? How do we plan menus? How do we plan scheduling? And the question is, who plans it? What do they plan? When do they plan it? Why do they plan it? How are they plan it? Now, you can't necessarily answer each one of those questions for every one of these cells over here, but that's a good starting place. They're the journalistic question: who, what, when, where, why, and how. If you know that, and if you can't answer the questions, let's say under production in a restaurant, who's doing the planning? Maybe nobody's doing the planning, Or maybe you're all doing the planning together, but hopefully it's getting done one way or another. Organizing. How do we decide in how to organize the line in the restaurant? How do we do that? Do we do it at saute station? Do we do it at salad station? Is it classical? How do we put it together? Leading, motivating, directing. How's that get done? What do we train our managers? Do we train our supervisors to be able to be good leaders and to do motivation and in all of these areas, And how do we know we're doing a good job? Controlling and evaluating. You know, you all read these Yelp and other social media comments, but you know, that's not all there is. We have to listen to the guests too. So it's always a question of doing that. So here's some examples with planning. So let's talk about procurement related to menus, organizing, coordinate with the kitchen, motivating, work with the providers. Think about that. So we have the Cisco's and the U.S. Foods, and in Europe the other companies, the Middle East, wherever you are in the world, you have providers, you have suppliers, and how's our food costs fit into all this? And you can go down the line and do that under production, menu development. How are we going to organize shifts, grade system, directing? Is there an expo person on the line? How do we get that guest feedback and so forth? Okay, so this is really, really important to do. And ultimately, that's going to inform some kind of a strategic plan that we've got. Now, many of you have studied strategic planning, and if you haven't, read an article or two. Write to me if you don't have any. I've got some good ones that are pretty short and that will give you a good idea. But so there's a vision. We come up with a strategy after we do a SWOT analysis. We try to see what are the opportunities, strengths, weaknesses. You know, what are the threats to us? We have a plan, broad plan. So maybe the plan, as David Deno talked about a while ago, is coming up with the new chicken service restaurant that he talked about, or just takeout that he talked about. And then the actions. What do we have to do to get to that plan? Very important. What's the difference between a manager and a leader? That's a good question to ask yourself. You know, you've heard it said, lead by example, listen, reflect, show the way, both with staffs and guests. Very, very important. Here's one to remember. Managers, that should say do things right. Leaders do the right thing. Managers do things right. They follow the rules. Leaders do the right thing. They listen to people and take care of where people need to go and treat them as individuals. So technology, Jihan talked about technology, and everybody here has talked about thought leadership in many ways. And you need to use all the tools of technology. You need to use the time saved to serve guests and staff. Technology can be our friend, but that's not the end. It's not the end and be all. As we come out of this crisis, technology, we're going to be all more savvy with it. But then how does this affect the guests? How does it affect staff? By the way, more self-service does not mean no service. More self-service does not mean no service. We're going to become more high-tech, no question about it. And that's a good thing. But for every time we have more high-tech, for every guest that we have at a kiosk to check themselves in, for every restaurant where we order breakfast on an iPad, or every bar where we've got them looking at a wine list on an iPad, you know, that should give us more time then to be able to spend time with each guest. People, as there's more high-tech, are going to want more soft touch. How do we deal with people as individuals? Very important, okay? So I am going to stop sharing at that point because I'm out of time here. And I want to next invite Rick Benninghoff to join us in our room. And Rick, welcome. Let me introduce Rick. Rick is the GM and CEO, I don't think CEO is in his title, I just gave it to him, but the GM of the Longboat Key Club here in Sarasota. It's right on the bay. It's on a narrow strip that's right between the bay and the Gulf, and it's actually on the Gulf. Well, parts of it on the bay, and huge operation. And Rick had took over as GM of this, I don't know what, 8 months ago. God, time flies. Maybe 9. Yeah.
1 year ago for that.
Okay. And in all full disclosure, Rick is on our board of advisors. So Rick's one of my bosses, and it's great. He helps us keep us straight. Presents in our classes, just wonderful. And the Longboat Key Club is our partner hotel. So we partner with them. Our students go over there. They do internships, they do tours, they do little practical experiences, and the staff from the Longboat Key Club come here a lot to the university, and we have a good time together. So Rick, I want to just start by making sure our audience knows that you were in the middle of a huge renovation, one of the largest renovations I've ever seen in my professional life, and COVID hit in the middle of it. What did that mean for you?
Hi, Dr. Pat. First, I just want to say hello and thank you for having me here with you today. I always enjoy our relationship with USF. It was a pretty amazing thing. We were in a $50 million renovation where we completely redid the private road coming into the resort over the last 2 years as part of phase 1. And then we did about 65% of our suites during last year. We were taking a break in that during high season to capture the revenue, and then starting back up June 1st of this year to finish phase 2 of the room renovation. And meanwhile, our main building with lobby and our restaurants and our meeting center were all continuously under renovation during this time period. So they were offline while we were still operating the property. And as we started that renovation, it was a major impressive situation to have to work through. How do you do remote check-ins? How do you do remote dining? How do you do all these type of things? And we had to set up a really successful situation for that during the renovation. And then we're right in the peak of season where we're sitting at 100% occupancy of what we had to rent. And COVID strikes, and we're at 3% occupancy overnight. So it was pretty incredible to have to work through that. And you think, oh, well, you can just work quicker, work faster. You can do more renovations when the guests aren't there. Well, the same issue everybody else was going through about, not wanting to leave their homes, not being able to go to work. Our construction teams were doing the same thing. So we didn't have the ability to have enough workers there in the initial stages. So it actually slowed us down at the beginning. It was quite amazing. And then we had to make the decision, do we take the year off, try to capture some revenue as we come out of this, or do we continue on with the renovation? Luckily, our ownership made the hard decision just to keep going forward. So we actually put more resources to it as we got into May and June, and really worked hard at getting the renovations further along. A lot of people that were in renovations had a major difficulty because they had supply chain issues. There was so much that you had for working with construction that just wasn't there overnight. You couldn't get it. You couldn't get it here. Transportation issues, all those type of challenges that you have. And we had some minor issues with that in some areas. We were really fortunate because we did this in 2 phases. At the beginning of phase 1, because of the challenges that were going on with China at that time, we decided to go ahead and pre-purchase all of our supplies at the beginning of phase 1 because we wanted to stop some of the bleed that we were going to get from the cost rising in all of the supply issue and supply chain. So we actually had everything in a local storage facility here in town. So we were one of the few that got very lucky. That wasn't planned because of the pandemic. But I can say in the future, that might be something to plan on when you're doing construction and other types of things to make sure that your supply chain issue, you're not 100% counting on it because it can dry up overnight. So we were really lucky in that aspect. That kept us going and several other things along those lines. So now we are within about 10 days of being absolutely 100% complete with our renovations. So we feel like we're in a really good position coming out of it. Our goal was to have it be ready for the 2021 season, and we're there. So all we need now is that as everything hopefully continues to get better, we'll have a really strong season coming up, and we'll be able to come out of this renovation in a really good position.
So planning, I mean, you've just illustrated how important that is. It's really amazing, Rick. So having gone through all this now, not just the how the crisis impacted your renovation, but just in general in operations too. What major lessons do you take from this and for your continued planning as we move forward?
Sure. As far as in the hospitality segment and hotel segment, I think we all have to recognize. I've been in hospitality my whole life, so for 30 plus years, I've been working in hotels and worked in a lot of different types of hotels, and I've seen in different places, different management react and act differently. Biggest thing is don't get complacent. Be ready for change. You have to change. You have to be ready to change quickly. The businesses that survived, and specifically, I think the hotels and restaurants that survived, were the ones that, when this first came to light and became a big issue, they immediately reacted. They didn't wait. They didn't try to hold on. They immediately made some tough decisions. Maybe they shut down. Maybe they cut hours. They did some things before the government even came in and told them they had to. Those are the ones that survived. And so I think we really have to learn from that is don't be scared to make the big decisions. Make the big decisions early. Plan ahead. Think about, this would be a hard thing to really imagine before it happened. But there were people that had talked about it was a potential that could happen. So try to run all the scenarios of different issues, different things that can come up, and just be ready for it. And don't be scared to change. We made decisions on day one. On day two, we reversed some of those decisions. On day three, we came up with new ideas. And now, many months later, we still go in and make adjustments because you have to do the right thing. We got to keep our guests safe. We got to keep our staff safe. We got to keep ourselves safe. But we also have to continue to work forward with our business and our business plan. We have that we owe to our ownership. And so you have to act quickly. You have to really be prepared for it. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I took from this is that the businesses that, again, reacted quickly, they're the ones who are surviving at this point.
In fact, I think, Rick, that's a theme. Well, I don't know if you have a theme from 2 interviews, but that's what we've heard in the last 2 weeks of interviews. Certainly what we heard tonight from Dave Deno, and what we heard last week from Don Fox. Same idea. Gian, would you put that question up again?
Of course.
That was
asking me to offer some discounted rates for students. Of course, we can work with every situation. Just give me a call and we'll sign an agreement for the 5,500 rooms. I'm sure we can work something out.
Yeah, no doubt. My last question for you in the last 3 minutes we have, Rick, and then you're going to come back on at the end of the panel, is where do you think the hotel and resort sector is headed now when we emerge from the
Sure.
pandemic?
That's a great question. I think it depends greatly on the specific area of hotels you're in, as well as your geographic areas. It's going to be different for everybody, depending on where you are. We went into this crisis. Our ownership has hotels all over both coasts of Florida, up in the Northeast, up in Canada, many other areas, and we all went through things at different times. I mean, our Canadian properties, they had a very large struggle for a very long time. Our Northeast struggled longer than we did. We were fortunate here, being in sunny Florida. We had drive market, what we call drive market. People from Florida and Georgia, they came back to us faster. So we recovered at a different pace. We have a long way to go. So it's hard to put one exact answer on that because it's going to be different for everyone. But I think as a whole, in general, I think definitely on the leisure market and the tourism side, I think at some point, not that far out, we're actually going to see more demand than what we've seen in the past several years. I think people sat at home during this pandemic and they evaluated what's important to me in my life. Is it working every day? Is it going to this, or is it that vacation that I get when I took a week? Maybe I'll take 2 weeks next year. And I think people are going to go on vacation. So I think the leisure market traveler is going to recover very fast and very strong as people get more comfortable in venturing out, especially when they're more comfortable in flying. When the overseas market opens up, that's going to be a game changer for us. But we're already seeing it. We're seeing it with local traffic, and that's going to keep expanding. So I think we actually have the possibility of having the best year we've had because, one, again, we've got a renovated product, but just in hotel market in general, I think it's going to recover very strongly as long as we keep seeing these positive signals that we think are going to be coming here in the very near term with that.
Great. And Jeff, I saw your question. We'll get to it when we get to the panel question, which was, what did you reach out to past guests? So we'll get to that when we get out to the panel. So Rick, if I could persuade you to stand by then till we get to the panel.
I'll be more than happy to.
And you can pour yourself a glass of wine now. It's okay.
We'll wait till after. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rick. We'll be back to you in a few minutes. Okay. Next up, we have Dr. Jay Schrock, Professor Jay Schrock. And I need to tell you that Jay is, first of all, he and I have known each other for going on 40 years. And I was just a baby when I met him. And so Jay is the founding dean of our School of Hospitality and Tourism Management here in Sarasota, Manatee. And he did that for many, many years. He retired a few years ago, but we don't let Jay stay retired. We call on him and we drag him around, and he does everything for us that we need to have done, and he's been wonderful at it. I've asked Jay tonight, because he has a lot of international experience, I've asked Jay tonight to talk about international implications for hospitality management and for hospitality education, but mostly he'll talk about hospitality management. So Jay, take it away.
Thank you very much, Pat. I appreciate your inviting me to do this. And I guess let's start with slide 1, please, John. Okay, today we're going to talk about international hospitality and tourism. Give me a slide, Pat, please, or John, whoever's doing that. Next slide. The $8 trillion tourism industry collapsed almost overnight. It was amazing. Borders closed. We stopped flights from coming in. Flights were turned around. There was severe limitation. Low-cost visas ended. No-cost visas ended. As a matter of fact, the U.S. now, who had many, many, many places where they could go visa-free. There's only 9 left, and most of those are in Central Africa. Not all, but most. Next slide, please. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that you look for the opportunities. You heard from Dean Moez, there's going to be winners and losers, and you need to be a winner. So you need to look, as I'm talking about all these negatives, you need to look at where the bright sides are in these things. Pessimists see difficulties and in every opportunity, and an optimist sees opportunities in every difficulty. Find the opportunities. Next slide, please. I want you to see, first of all, we'll talk about hotels in a minute, but right now, worldwide decline in dining, seating, and restaurants. And you can see that starting there in about beginning of March, it actually started in February, but beginning of March, we saw a great downturn. And then as countries relaxed their virus quarantines, it relaxed, but then the second wave started. And that second wave is still coming, and it's going to come strong. I don't care what anybody tells you. There's not enough vaccine in this world to vaccinate the number of people that it's going to take, and it's going to come back strong. That does not mean that the industry is not going to come back strong along with it. Next slide, please. If you look at these countries by a color code, you'll see that those top 3 up there, that orange, which is the U.S., the next light orange is UK, and the next one below is Mexico. Those 3 did not lose as much market as other countries did that totally shut down, like Australia, Canada, and Germany down there in the bottom. Their industry absolutely collapsed. There was nothing left of it. And as they relaxed, you can see up there that it crunched up a bit. And then you can see at the top, you'll see that our industry stayed about the same. We didn't have a big recovery up there. And now we're moving back over, and you can see that those lines are now being extended. And I'll talk to you about one example in a minute, but that's going to continue for a while. Next slide, please. You'll see that the inverse of those countries that did not close their borders down so much had many more cases of coronavirus than those that didn't. That does not mean that they're not going to recover quickly. In fact, you're going to see that countries like the U.S. will recover much more rapidly than others. In fact, developed countries are going to recover much more rapidly. Next slide, please. You'll see things like, you're starting to see this right now. Singapore and China have started issue. Can we go back up? Thanks. Started issuing travel visas, but only to passengers who test negative. So they will send you back. Actually, they will quarantine you. Iceland is one of the few countries in the world that is really allowing tourists to come in on a normal basis, except they test you at the airport. And if you test positive, you wind up going into quarantine there. That collapse down there at the bottom on the right, that collapse really cost the economies and bankrupted many, many hotels, many restaurants, bus tour operators. And you may not think about that being part of our industry, but in the US, there are about 3,000 bus companies, most privately owned. Worldwide, there are more than 100,000 small bus companies that haul tourists all over the place. And so, and when those central agencies like Hertz that went out of business and others, about 110 million plus people lost their jobs. And so there's going to be a workforce ready to go back to work at some point in time. Next slide, please. If you look over there on the right-hand slide, you'll see what Italy looked like, and you see what happened to it. It lost 90% of its hotel occupancy. It was amazing. China, you can see, lost 68. And if you go down there to the United States, well, UK lost 67. The US lost 59%. If you go back over on the left-hand side, you will see that the Asia Pacific area down there at the bottom, the occupancy fell 59.5% year over year, and ADR dropped to 17.6%. But look what it did to RevPAR. It destroyed the RevPAR. And if you go back up and look at that 59.5% and look at it, the US, approximately the same thing happened here. So that was a real problem. But we're seeing the countries that have gotten this under control a little bit better, at least than the US, and UK is now starting to shut things down. Malaysia and South Korea, and Taiwan and China, Germany and Greece are starting to manage this pandemic and are starting to recover. The countries that are in real trouble, and it's going to be a long, long, painful struggle. Places like India, Indonesia, and you heard Mr. Deno talk about one of their places in Brazil. Brazil has many, many, many very large slums where people live in very close proximity to each other. That's going to be a very difficult recovery for them. Next slide, please. So how are things going to change for governments and individuals, our consumers? Governments are going to open and close borders more easily than they've ever done that before. If you look at what Hungary and Poland did, which are part of the EU, they shut their borders down during part of this pandemic, which is not something they could do. You even looked at states in the United States that were starting to test people and quarantine them as they moved across state lines. Now, of course, it's hard to do driving, but when they come in by air, it's quite easy. Visas are going to be more expensive, and they're going to be more intrusive into your health issues as you try and access visas to international countries. The entry lines are going to be much longer, and you're going to spend a lot more time talking with the customs agents and people like that about what you're doing, what you're traveling with, why are you coming, things like that. Some countries' movements are going to be limited. The next slide, please. Thank you. Consumers are starting to double down on sustainability, on everything to reduce their carbon footprint. And that means that the people offering services are going to wind up having to purchase offsets. People are becoming more concerned with the environment, and that's a worldwide piece. diversified locations to avoid the crunch of mass tourism and focusing on other places to go. You're starting to see people in Prague, for example, or Venice is a classic example. Since the kind of shutdown in Italy, people that used to go out on the streets the way the Venetians used to and chat with each other and sit in the street and have coffee are really fed up with mass tourism. If you've been there lately, you realize you're in wall-to-wall people, and they probably are not going to let that happen. You're going to have to go to other locations. You can't be there all the time. High mileage travelers are going to think about their bucket lists and where they're going to go, and they're going to travel more often. I don't know what happened. Did I mess something up? Am I out of time?
Jay, you can just wrap it up quickly, but then we're going to come back to you during the panel, and we can
all right.
this conversation.
Okay. Well, I was going to say they're going to do that. Travelers are going to demand more opportunity. When is it going to return to normal? It's not going to return to normal. It's much like after 9/11, it's going to be the new normal. And you folks out there listening are the people that are going to be able to make the change and great opportunities. Please go to the last slide. Next one. Yeah. Victory comes to those finding opportunities in problems. It's up to you out there to go and find those areas. Thank you very much for your time.
Jay, could you please stand by then, and we're gonna come back to you for the panel, okay? Yep. You can have a glass of wine now if you want to.
Oh, can I? Can I run up and get a glass of wine?
Yeah, go ahead. All right. Thank you, Jihan, and thank you, Jay. Our last our last guest here is also not really a guest. Just in full disclosure, Dick Rivera is also on our board of advisors. So he's also one of my bosses. And Dick has just an amazing background. He is currently the CEO of Rubicon Enterprises. And they've got several restaurants, a couple here in Sarasota, and they have some in some other cities that he started late that I can't wait to get to, actually, because they sound so cool. And he's former CEO of TGI Friday and Darden Restaurants. Wow. And he also is was the president of the National Restaurant Association and served on the board of the National Restaurant Association. So Dick is somebody who is plugged in and gets it. And I have to tell you, we had him in a couple of weeks ago. Students were mesmerized, as was I, by him. And it takes a lot to mesmerize me, but it was just terrific. So Dick, welcome, and thank you for coming tonight. Nick, I think you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah.
There you go.
You'd think after months of Zooming, I'd figured that out.
Well, it's StreamYard, so it's different.
I wanted to say thank you, and thanks for inviting me to be with you. I always enjoy listening to you, listening to the guests you have on, and it's already been, I think there've been some pretty insightful comments made and some good data on international travel, some of the things I thought about and some I had not. So I always learn a little bit when I have my encounters with you, and I appreciate it.
Good, thanks, Dick. First question we have for you is, where have we come from? So I'm talking about more globally now, okay? Of course, you can use your own restaurants as examples, but where have we come from and where are we headed in the restaurant sector post-pandemic? I mean, that's a big question, I realize it, but have at it, Dick.
I'll give you my best guess, because I think that's what most of us are doing right now, informed guessing. I think obviously the world changed. You heard what Rick had to say. The restaurant industry faced the same kinds of issues, maybe even more severe than he did in his case, if that's possible. I've seen one estimate where over 100,000 restaurants have closed already, and there'll be more to follow. And so I think that's changed significantly what will be like when we come out of this. I mean, on the theme of looking for opportunities, there'll be fewer seats in the market. Restaurateurs are notorious for being optimistic and always overbuilding, putting more seats in the market, thinking they'll do well and somebody else might not. And I think this is going to help restore some balance. So if there's a silver lining at all, that might be part of it. The sad part is that a lot of people spend their lives and their savings, building businesses, and now they've had to go through this. And so I think it's going to be a very different sort of business. I think people have gotten used to doing more takeout, more off-premise consumption. As you are aware, I'm sure the QSR sectors have done really well. Many of them, most of them, I would say. And the full service sectors are the ones that have suffered the most. And in particular, casual dining, where we operate with Marlowe's and with Glasgow and Bricks. And so I think it's going to be a very different world. I think people are keener. A lot of the comments that were made about hospitality in terms of people demanding just generally cleaner, better facilities and more sanitation, better sanitation practices. I think that's going to remain. I think it was an astute comment to say that just as life changed for us after 9/11, it's going to change after the pandemic again. I think that there's a real focus on quality. I think people are really, they're eager to get out when they can. For instance, dining outside, if they feel that the environment is a safe one, and speaking specifically about restaurants now, and that restaurants are doing their part in terms of adhering to safety protocols and doing so with rigor. They're eager to get out, really, and I think that's going to continue. So I agree with the sentiments that have been expressed that when as things continue to improve, and I think they will, even though the trends don't look good now, people, as they perceive that it's safer to go out there, are going to start wanting to get out and get out of their homes and get out and socialize a little bit. They'll want to do it safely. So I think there's going to be a bright future. I think it's another year away, to tell you the truth. In our planning, we're saying just plan on what we have today lasting, if we're fortunate, into the third quarter of next year, maybe fourth quarter of next year. But I think it's going to get steadily better. And I think by this time next year, there will have been enough of the inoculations to get people starting to feel at ease. I think it's going to take a while for travel to come back to where it was. And I think urban hotels are going to have a tough time. But I agree with Rick's comment about resort hotels. I was in St. Petersburg over the weekend, and down by the waterfront, the hotels were busy, weddings were taking place. It's a very different kind of wedding. Everybody was masked and they were keeping their distance, but weddings, so people want to socialize, and as soon as if they can find a way to do it, they will. And when they feel comfortable, they will. So I think we're headed for a different sort of scenario, but I think within 2 years, we'll be back to an environment where people will be going out again. Restaurants will be growing again. But I think it's put, I know it has in our organization, it's put a different perspective on things in terms of really having your radar on the 60 miles out, not the 30 miles out, trying to anticipate what's coming, being ready. I think Rick said it well, not waiting when a crisis is upon you, but being willing to take a decision and move on it. I think that's one of the things that really helped us. We're a small company. And to go to lose 80% of your sales overnight, you don't have a lot of time to stop and think about what you want to do. You got to make some decisions and start executing. And my two great partners, John Mess Jr. and Tom DeGiorgio, and they were terrific in the execution of our plans and the discipline to stay with it even today. I mean, we know where every dollar is going, and we're really minding our cash. So there's a really intense focus on the day-to-day management of the business and controls. At the same time, a really enhanced sensitivity to what's going on with your employees and to what's going on with your guests, because they're going through really difficult times in their own way. And so you can't let your problems become theirs, and you've got to try and help them with theirs. And so it's a really demanding kind of thing. And I would put the credit more on my two partners because they were the ones living it every day. I was on the phone talking to them. I wasn't actually dealing with the employees and having to furlough people and all of that. And with Bricks and Glasgow, it was a little bit different. I mean, we bought Glasgow on the 2nd of March and had to close it on the 17th. And so that was a bit of a shock. Fortunately, we had planned to do some remodeling, and so we decided to go ahead and get it done. And we were able to, again, what Rick said is true. It was hard to find workers to come in that wanted to be in that environment and do the work, but we were able to find some. And so by the time the state opened up, we were able to open up. So we really were able to make good use of the time. And fortunately, we were in a position to be able to spend that money to do the remodel. We had planned to do it anyway. And so it didn't, but by being able to move quickly, and we had our design ideas in mind, so to be able to get them done and implement them, we were able to put that time to good use. And again, so the theme that was just that Jay was just talking about in terms of finding opportunities and problems, we had to shut down. We said, what are we going to do this time? And we were able to do it. So when we opened back up, we opened up at a better rate than what we were doing before we closed. So as far as going forward, I really think it's going to be a question of who can get through the next 12 to 18 months. And I think that has to do with being disciplined on a day-to-day basis and then being sensitive to what's going on with your employees and your guests.
Dick, I look at you and I look at me, and we both have lived in Pennsylvania in the Northeast, right? And we're both familiar with those winters. And as you comment on moving forward, and that's a pretty far distant window in some ways.
It is.
Given that the vaccines have started, but I think I understand what you're saying. It's going to take time to normalize. But two things come into my mind with that. One of them is, what about our friends in the northern parts of the U.S. that are in Canada that are in cold weather, and in Europe, North and Central Europe, cold weather, even some other parts of the world, cold weather too. What is their ability to be able to hang on to some market share when people can't eat outside?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
I'm really, think about what's happening in New York right now.
Yeah.
I don't know how they get through it. It's so sad. I just read where Club 21 is going to close.
Is it really?
And, I think about restaurants. I always tell my guys that operating a restaurant like the Club 21 or Le Bernardin, which is one of my favorites. Every time I go to New York, I try, if nothing else, I'll go by and have a drink there. I just love it so much. I said, it's really a gift to people, to know that when you go to New York, you can go to Club 21. It's going to be as good or better than it was the last time you were there. Same thing with Le Bernardin. And it applies to our restaurants too, whether you're selling barbecue or pizza or pasta, that it's really a gift when you execute like that and people can depend on it. And I think the converse of that, it's a huge loss to have the talent, the culture, the tradition that's been built there. And it's not going to be recouped anytime soon. Now I'm an optimist at heart. And I think there's such an incredible wealth of talent and initiative and entrepreneurial spirit in cities like New York, Chicago, northern cities, that they'll find a way in some way to get through, and they'll come back. It's just going to take time. There's going to be a lot of damage along the way. I just don't know how to be more optimistic about that.
Yeah.
I think we won't have our Canadian visitors this year in Florida. We won't have our European visitors, but I think we may get some more people from the north that want to come to a place where they can be outside and they can enjoy a little bit of a more normal life. Even if it's really what Rick was saying, even if it's for a week or two, they need to have that ability to come down and be someplace where they can feel safe. So I think there will be some offsets to it. We're not expecting the same kind of season that we might have had in the past year or two, but I don't think it'll be as bad. Now, for the people up north, I can't even imagine what it would be like. It's a whole different circumstance. You have to think totally differently about it.
Rick, I got a couple of follow-up questions, but let's go into the panel. And I'll start with you in the panel on the follow-up questions, because they're not nice questions, but they're something I've been thinking about. Hi, everybody. So remember, we have Jay down here, lower left-hand corner. We have Rick Benninghove, lower right-hand corner. And we have Dick Rivera, upper right-hand corner, and me. Dick, I want to just start with you. And we're going to do this until 6:10. Okay, so we're going to close out with this. I want to start with you, Dick, and it's a question that we didn't get to just now. Two questions. One of them has to do with capitalization, and I don't want to get too intense here in terms of details, but we did hear last week about the finance situation, and people needing to understand income statements, balance sheets, and that kind of thing. If a person is going, and I'm thinking about small independent operators right now, I'm guessing, and I don't know this, I haven't seen any data, and maybe some of our faculty are doing research on this, I'm not sure. Jihan will know. But if a lot of, or a great percentage of the 33% of restaurants that have that have not made it. I wonder if a large percentage of those are independent operators that were undercapitalized, that couldn't make rent or mortgage payments. I don't know if you've heard anything about that at all through your grapevine, Dick, or not.
Well, it's anecdotal for sure. I don't have any data, but it also kind of makes sense. And I will just tell you from my personal experience, with, Marlowe's is a small company. I mean, our revenues were about 50 million last year. And so in terms of chain kinds of concepts, it's pretty small. And I will just tell you that quickly managing our cash is the only thing that enabled us to get through. I spoke a little bit to the students about this. We over communicated with everybody we do business with our employees, with our guests, with our vendors, most critically. And we just told some of them, we said, we're not going to be able to pay you what we owe you. We'll keep you current, and we're going to, by the end of the year, we're going to catch up. But we can't do it right now because we need the cash. And they were grateful, actually, that we came to them. I'm not grateful, maybe a little strong. They appreciated that we came to them, and we're very straightforward. And then we did everything we said we were going to do, so we didn't deviate from the plan. And but getting your arms around your situation, whatever that situation may be. And in our case, we knew if we didn't conserve our cash, we weren't going to have a chance. We had no idea how long it was going to last. We were looking at the to-go sales thing didn't help us at all. And
did
so
not.
I think it did not in the case of Marlowe's. In the case of Bricks, with barbecues a little bit more friendly. In the case of Bricks, we saw a big uptick in that, and actually we've been able to hold on to a lot of it. So just this last week, our to-go sales were over 30% of our total business. So it's held on, and it was way less than that before. So that's, if there's a salutary effect, that's one of them. Yeah. And, but I would say this whole business about being well capitalized, having cash in reserve, acting quickly to conserve cash when you see something coming. I mean, a matter of waiting a week or two can make a difference, because the funds, our cash goes out quickly between the rents and the vendors and everything else. So, but the communication is important. I mean, you've got to really get on good terms with them and let them know what you're going to do, and then stick with it. And we found everybody, by and large, we had a few landlords not so eager to work with us, but by and large, everybody was really willing, as long as they felt like we were coming from the right place and doing what we said we were going to do. They were really willing to help us out, and they did. And I think it saved us, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, Rick, I want to just follow up. We didn't have time to finish before. We had a question come in from one of our audience on have you in any way communicated with your past guests about future plans and about future marketing? I think that was the gist of the question. I think it was Jeff who asked that question earlier.
Excellent. Yeah, we continuously communicated with our guests, past, present. We're very lucky that we have a great amount of repeat guests within the resort. So we've kept in communication with them through some emails and actually through some actual ad campaigns and things to let them know that we're ready when they're ready to come back. We've done fairly large campaigning to show our new products that we have. The new rooms are incredible, completely different than they were before. We've really completely changed the map, full resort and club. So we are keeping in communication with them. And I think that's important. And to communicate to your guests. I mean, everybody, restaurants, like Dick's, doing hotels, all those areas, you have to operate differently. And so it's important to communicate to everybody to let them know. Currently, we're not doing stayover housekeepings as a way to distance ourselves. Things like that, you have to communicate. So we do. Yeah.
And you've got a rich treasure trove of data there and of context. So that's really good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jay, I think you had one more point you wanted to make when we had to cut you off earlier.
Well, I guess it wasn't that amazing. I just want the audience to know that the opportunities now are absolutely amazing. You heard Dean Moes say there's going to be winners and losers. There's going to be a lot of losers, and they're talking about it. Undercapitalization, not having your materials where you want them, where you need them. And I was going to leave the audience with one question or one quick comment about something that happened during the pandemic. When we were all out running around looking for toilet paper, there were warehouses full of it, that through a separate supply chain don't go. They go to the commercial market. They went to the university. It was closed. They went to the factories. They were closed. They went to the office buildings. They were closed. Everybody at home was trying to use their toilet paper, and there were warehouses of boxes with 82-ply rolls sitting in them. But the supply chains never were able to cross. So an opportunity. If you had a warehouse full of that,
Yeah.
I mean, but it's an opportunity.
Yeah. Let's we got about 4 or 5 minutes left here. Actually 4, but we can take 5. And I don't know if there will even be any comments on this, but one of the observations that I've had, because the point of this, one of the points of this endeavor we've had for 7 weeks to say, well, okay, what do we learn from all this, and where are we heading? What do we need to do? And I guess as I reflect on it, and there have been wars for years, okay, and this certainly in the U.S. and the Western world, we've encountered wars. We had World War I. We had the pandemic, right? It really almost concurrent with World War I. It's right after World War I ended. People were fatigued, and that came the Spanish flu. We had a depression, a horrible depression in this country, and it spread to some other parts of the world too. We then had more wars, World War II and Korea, a couple of recessions. Then we had 9/11, which was in this country, in the U.S., which was a disaster, and then a big recession in 2008. Now, I'm using U.S. examples, and I realize we have an international audience, but I think we can make the case in other countries too. So the answer, the question I have is, okay, this isn't going to be the last disaster that we have, and it's not going to be the last crisis. How can we better prepare for ourselves?
I think that's a great question. And I think, too, to turn it to your students. I mean, we've talked a lot about businesses and how we're going to react, but students and future employees, how are they going to be prepared for these? And I think this is an opportunity for, universities, even such as yourself, to add curriculum to help with that whole aspect that we've all missed to some degree in the past. Along those lines, I want to thank USFSM for our partnership that we've had. I think that it's been really tremendous in my life to be able to work with your students over there, working with Adam's class, especially being able to develop these students into lodging management and really, taking them to where they have to look at these fundamental things and look outside the box. And this is a situation where I think they have to look outside the box and say, okay, how are we going to be able to contribute later? Because we've all been through, like you said, 9/11 and other things. They have to be ready for the next pandemic that comes up or the next 9/11. And so, it's our responsibility as business leaders and educators as yourself to really prepare them. And I think that's the bigger question here is how are we going to really, put them on the map with that?
Yeah. That's great that you mentioned that, Rick, because I've been talking to our faculty and students about that a little bit, and to our board members like you, that
Right.
we need to have incorporated across the curriculum crisis management, or maybe even have a whole course on that. Certainly in hotels, we've known that for a long time, especially for fire drills and flooding and that kind of thing. Dick, any comment on that?
Well, I think those are good pearls of wisdom. I think that I'm reminded of something I heard a long time ago. It says nothing is ever as bad as it seems, and things are never as good as they seem. And I think, I've been in the business, it'll be 50 years in 21. And I think this experience, you keep learning every year. This experience has sort of reinforced or reaffirmed for me that having a solid culture in your organization, having people that are truly engaged and committed to what you're doing and understand, enables you to move faster. It enables you. Covey's son wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. If you have an organization that is trusted by your guests, by your employees, you can make decisions and move faster. And so the everyday work of really running your business in a high quality way and building trust with everyone you deal with is so important, because I think it's a bit of an antidote for when crisis times hit. You can ask more, you can do more, and you can do it faster. And so I think there's a curious combination of trying to anticipate what might be coming and thinking about how you deal with it, but really sticking to the knitting and making sure that you're doing your homework every day in terms of building strength and relationships with everyone you deal with. And so it's kind of a paradox in a way. You have to have one foot firmly planted in the present, executing every day, and you have to have another foot that's taken a little bit further view, a 10,000 foot view of your financial situation. How long can I survive if something happens and business is really off? Of your, of just kind of the different things that can really affect you. So you have to live in kind of two worlds at once.
Yeah, and that's how you closed with my students, our students, a few weeks ago, and I thought that was brilliant. That, you know, how do you manage the tactical but plan strategically too, and that's just not easy to do. Jay, any closing comment for us?
Yeah, I'd really like to applaud Dick and Rick. I think they are right on the money from the research that I was doing as I got ready to look at the international thing. I think the timing is mid to late next year if we're going to recover. And I think Rick's comment about people returning, especially to high-end resorts, when I called the ones in France and I called my friends in Turkey and Boardroom, it's interesting in Boardroom at the really upscale Marriott properties, their ADR is up, their RevPAR is up, and they were doing booming business. And I think people are ready to get out. I think there's going to be a lot of domestic travel, a lot more domestic travel, and I think lots of people are ready to get out to a restaurant. I'm tired of carrying it home in a bag. So, gentlemen.
Bless you.
Great. And Dick, before I close this out, I just to both Dick and Rick. Now, you know, Rick's is a closed situation, but he lets me over in the hotel occasionally, and I go use it. And Dick, at Classico, you know, I hope you're going to have Susan Manello for me at low prices.
I'll bring you some of my own.
So I want to thank this group, and I want to thank the students and the audience, and I want to thank our faculty in particular. You know, they did this out of their hides. Nobody got paid anything for this. I mean, we're all paid, kind of, but nobody got anything extra for this, and it was really wonderful. And I want to thank the audience. You guys are just amazing, and you energize us. And now for a shameless commercial. The shameless commercial is, if you like this, we have more where this came from. We have a master's degree, which we're now offering purely online, so you can get it online delivery. You know, it's kind of like takeout, and you don't have to come to class or do anything like that. It's all distance, okay? And it's a great price. And we have our bachelor's degree now offered on all three campuses on Sarasota, Manatee, Tampa, and St. Petersburg. You don't have to come to Sarasota if you don't want to. We got it all figured out. We want you to register. We want you to be an alumnus, but first you got to be a student. So I'm now going to, we're going to show Dr. Moaz Limayam, and he's going to do something special for you and give you a certificate.
Thank you so much, Dean Moreo. And again, everyone, congratulations on behalf of all of us at the University of South Florida and the Muma College of Business. Congratulations. You did it. I hope this evening was the last of many Mondays. Your Mondays will never be the same. And I hope you enjoyed this certificate. You have a good appreciation of the incredible work that was done by our colleagues, to whom I am very, very grateful. And again, I know you had to come every Monday or watch this on your time and take the quizzes, and we are very proud of you. You did it. Now you are part of the University of South Florida and the Muma College of Business family. You will be alums and always hopefully stay engaged with us. We offer always a lifelong warranty on our certificates and degrees. So if at any point in time we can help you in any way, please reach out. And now this is the moment you've been waiting for, the moment of conferring the degrees. So by the authority vested on me by the University of South Florida and the Muma College of Business, I hereby confer the Post-Crisis Hospitality Management Certificate upon you. Congratulations and big applause to all of you. Again, thank you for being with us for all these weeks. I hope we met your expectations. If we have not, we're going to give you back all your money, guaranteed. But in all seriousness, It has been a pleasure being with you, and I hope our roads will cross again. I hope we can see you in our programs at the Muma College of Business or at our School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, but we cannot wait to see you progress in your careers and succeed and come back and stay engaged with that. Thank you very much. Congratulations again, and have a wonderful evening. And very happy holidays to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Limayam. And Dr. Jihan, I think we're going to close with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pat. I appreciate it. Thanks also to Dean Limayam for this wonderful congratulatory notes. As we have told you that we have a small surprise for our participants today. And before I introduce our surprise, I would like to also start thanking several people who made it possible. First of all, our leader here is Dr. Pat Moreo, who's the Dean of School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at the University of South Florida. I would like to thank him for supporting us, for making this all available. And Dean Moez Limayam. He is the Dean of Muma College of Business. As you have seen, he not only just supported this certificate program, but he took his own time, despite all being very busy, very different things that he's involved with, but he showed his support even to this final day. Dr. Karen Holbrook, the Regional Chancellor, for the University of South Florida, Sarasota Monte campus, we would like to thank her for her support for this certificate program. Dr. Faizan Ali, one of our professors, but also helped me in the backstage for this program. For those of you who may not know that we produce this entire certificate program in-house. So we utilize our own staff. Dr. Gözde Tuktarhan, one of our visiting scholars, she also helped tremendously with all of the program details. Abraham Terra, one of our graduate students, actually master student, he also helped quite a bit. We would like to, of course, thank Miss Lori Briggs. She is the University of South Florida Muma College of Business Marketing Director. Unbelievable support from as well. Mr. Sean Ahern from the University of South Florida Sarasota Monte Marketing Office helped for this program. And of course, I would like to thank all faculty members in our program who took place in this program. And of course, the biggest thank goes to 5,600 plus, actually it's almost 6,000 now, participants from all around the world. And you know what makes us so happy is that on average, we have about 300 to 400 people attending this session live, which is unbelievable. But by the end of the week, that our views go over 5,000. As a matter of fact, the first video that Professor Adam Karmer has done has been viewed more than 12,000 views. So that shows us the impact is even greater than the people who have participated. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you our surprise. So he is one of our faculty members. And he actually taught one of the lectures in hospitality law. He's normally a lawyer. But today you are going to see him in a different hat. So let me bring here Mr. Keith Barron. Keith, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Jihan.
And Keith is here with Cindy. Cindy is Keith's the other half, as Keith describes it. And Cindy is also a great friend of our college, and we would like to now leave you in Keith and Cindy's hands for the next 10 minutes. Keith and Cindy, please take it over.
Thank you, Jihan. Thank you very much. Congratulations to all the participants. Cindy Diskin on piano. I'm going to be on guitar, and we would like to just take this out with a 8 or 9 minute original instrumental that we thought an apt title would be Neptune's Galaxy. Thank you for listening, everyone. Congratulations. And I hope you like that little journey.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Keith. This was excellent. And Cindy, we appreciate it so much. Dean Moreo, in final remarks, I would like to leave the word to you. And we are going to close, but I just want to tell, and we have seen, I've been seeing, reading the comments, unbelievable. The amount of support that we receive for this program is amazing. That's what makes us keep going. And we are going to hopefully come back with different programs. As Dean Moreo have said, we would love to see you as part of our program, undergraduate program or master's program, fully online. Dean Moreo, please.
Oh, thank you, Jihan. You know, I again, Jihan, I need to just recognize you. For the audience out there, this idea of doing this was Jihan's idea. And he came to the faculty, came to me and the faculty and said, listen, I'd like to do it. And he was inspired on it by something that the College of Business did a few months ago. And our whole faculty jumped on it, but Jihan made it happen, fee-free for you, because he and Faizan and Gojda and his other assistants did all the production work on this. If we had a production company to do this, we're going to be close to $60,000, and we don't have that kind of money. But Jihan did it, and I thought the production was terrific. I mean, I was just so happy. So Jihan and his staff and our faculty and our students and our alumni, they really epitomize what we are about. Yes, teaching, yes, learning, yes, technology, yes, management. But in the end, we're about a culture of hospitality. We hope you join us.
Thank you, Dean Moreo, one more time for your nice questions, comments as well. I just see some comments here about the quiz. People thought there is no quiz tonight. Yes, there is quiz. Unfortunately, that's the way that this certificate goes. If any of you, I would like to just repeat, and we will follow up with an email to every single of you, that if you want to earn this certificate, you have until the end of this month to take those quizzes. If you do, you are going to be getting, as a New Year present, your certificate, electronic certificate from the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. And if you have any issues logging into Schoology, please email certificate@m3center.org. The email that we have for this program goes there. Abraham, they are all monitoring that email and will be happy to help you. As a matter of fact, with some of you I met on Zoom because you had some problems with Schoology, which is a third-party software that we are using. But we are definitely here committed to help you get through these quizzes, and you can take it over again. If there is any issues, you can revisit the content. Also, for those of you who are joining us later, that we are going to repeat this certificate program in New Year. And also, finally, that you are going to receive a survey from us for the satisfaction survey. So we would like you, please, to give us your feedback and some ideas for the future program. Thank you to all of you. Today, we understand that it's a little bit over time, but that's our finale. And we hope to see you as part of USF as a student in our master's program. Somebody asked about the requirements for the master's program. Again, we will email that to you, or please visit usf.edu and search for hospitality. You are going to find it. Have a wonderful night, evening, morning, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.